Welcome to the channel. We are back again with another BDO video guide, and this time around we're taking a look at my favorite Awakened Warrior and PvE combos, tips and tricks for when you are grinding. We have this divided into a beginner, intermediate and advanced section, and to make it really just easy and approachable, I adjust my terminology depending on which section we are dealing with. So if you're just starting out and you don't know the name of the abilities and everything, don't worry, I got you covered, and hopefully you're gonna enjoy it. Let's jump straight into it. The beginner combos are not really that important. Early on, most of the packs you run into, you're actually going to be one-shotting. So it's less about having proper combos and more about knowing which abilities to use for our 360 AoE, and also getting your movement under control. And especially movement for warriors is exceptionally important, both for early and in-game PvE, and then also using that, the knowledge of your movement and feeling comfortable with it, later on taking it into PvP. So the most important abilities to use are the one with a 360 AoE, so you don't have to worry about grouping the mobs up. You can just do an ability, kill all the mobs, and move on to the next. The main abilities you're looking for this is going to be your Shift LMB, Gravedigger, your Shift RMB, Slashing the Dead, and also your S LMB, Pulverize, and the Flow Tempest. The LMB plus RMB, Reckless Blow. Now Reckless Blow you can charge up by holding down the keys, but you don't actually have to if you're one-shotting mobs anyway. So double tapping or just one tapping LMB and RMB at the same time does Reckless Blow. You can, as a follow-up to Reckless Blow or on its own, use SF, which is Angle Break, and you can hold it down for an additional spin. It's a very good 360 AoE as well. The pre-awakened abilities, there's also one very important one, and that is Shift F, Ground Smash. There is a flow to that, which is Ultimate Ground Smash, but I don't recommend getting it early on. It's very costly, and you have to use it as a flow to ground smash. So if the mob's already dead from the first hit, there's not much point in doing the follow-up hit. Those are your main one-shot grinding abilities in the early game. And if you need to finish off a pack, maybe it's not completely dead, you have an ability called Merciless, which is S and RMB, looks like this. It's not a 360 AoE, but it is a frontal cone, and it is spammable. So whenever in doubt about what abilities to use, SRMB, Merciless, deals full damage on all the swings. So you can spam that as a filler whenever you need. For Awakened Warrior, we have two different sets of movement abilities. We have our Greatsword, our Awakened abilities, but we also have the accessibility of our pre-awakened kit. And especially for movement, the pre-awakened kit is extremely important. The two major movement abilities for your awakened kit is your Solar Flare and Balance Strike. The way you use Solar Flare is you hold down W and then LMB, and Balance Strike you do by holding down W and RMB. So Solar Flare, W, LMB looks like this, and Balance Strike, W, RMB, like this. Very similar abilities, but they have a lot of different uses. For Solar Flare, as you see, the distance isn't that far, but you can extend this distance by a lot if you started out with a dash. So you hold down Shift, and then you do a forward dash by clicking W, and right after you do that, you keep holding down W and you click LMB. So it's gonna look something like this. Shift, W, LMB. And as you can see, you travel a lot further and it's almost instant. Super nice movement abilities. Balance Strike, your W RMB. It can be used as a cancel for a lot of other abilities, and you can use it to reposition or move forward a lot. So if you're moving between packs, you can also just do a dash into the Balance Strike for quick travel, but it doesn't have the same extension as your Solar Flare dash does. You can, however, use Balance Strike at the end of Solar Flare to travel even further. So we're going to do the dash into LMB, and then we're just going to go RMB right after. It's going to look something like this. Let's see even further distance travel in very quick succession. What's really nice about these abilities is their very short cooldown. On Balance Strike, forward RMB, we have a 3-second cooldown, and on our Solar Flare, dash forward LMB, we have a 5-second cooldown. So you can use these abilities to travel between packs at a rapid pace and without much downtime. A recent addition to the Warrior Kit is the ability called Heaven's Cleave. This one here you can hotkey. I personally have it on my #1 button. And you can also use it as a flow after different abilities. The beautiful thing about this is that it's a movement ability with a strike, and it deals really good damage. So for early game, while you can use this to kill a pack, I would suggest using it as part of your movement. So if you are going from Solar Flare and you just hold down your LMB, it will automatically move into Heaven's Cleave and extend the range on it and deal the damage. So you can use this to travel even further than normal. And on top of that, kill the pack you just arrived at. The most important abilities for movement in your pre-awakened kit is going to be your WF, Charging Thrust, and your WRMB, Shield Charge. There are other movement abilities as well, but they aren't that relevant for your early game grinding. It's just about traveling quickly between pack to pack, one-shot them, and get on to the next one. And your Charging Thrust, your WF, it's probably the best movement ability Warriors has for quick, long-distance movement, and it looks something like this. Your WRMB, Shield Charge, is an extremely good ability in most aspects of the game, as it also has a stiffen on it, which can be very useful in PvP, and it has a front guard. So you can add it into movement, your WRMB, to move in between packs if you're in pre-awakened. One thing to note about Charging Thrust, WF, is two things. First off, you can use it directly from your greatsword without having to switch over to your pre-awakened kit. And secondly, don't hit anything with it. If you hit something, an enemy or a target in PC or whatever, you get locked into an animation that deals no real damage and is unprotected. So try to stop short of a group you're going to, or move a bit to the side. Otherwise, it's going to look something like this. This long animation doesn't do anything, and you're just stuck there looking silly. So when you're using a Charging Thrust, you can move a bit to the side, and then dash into the enemies to get into your greatsword again. And now you can one-shot the pack while being in the center. Another movement ability that is very often overlooked is the most important skill enhancement ability for Warriors, in my opinion. To get this, you need to have Ground Smash, which is an extremely good ability as well. It's a 360 AoE, so you can use this to kill packs. I use it all the time in PvE and PvP. And then Piercing Spear, which is well worth getting on its own. These two abilities are going to unlock your Frenzied Spear. And this should be your #1 priority to get when we are talking about skill enhancements. Obviously, if there's other things in your skill tree that's more important to get before this, get that first. But as soon as you're ready to start working on the skill enhancement abilities, this is the #1 priority to get. The way it works is when you hit a target with this spear, you travel as well. So a normal spear throws it, hits the target, deals some damage and stiffens. But if you're using your skill enhancement, Frenzied Spear, which you can hotkey and use from Awakening as well, this happens. You travel forward, sprinting to the enemy you hit, doing a slash. So you can use this to travel between packs as well, if your other movement abilities are on cooldown. When you move into the more intermediate grind spots, such as Hystria, you will need an actual combo to kill the packs. You're not going to be one-shotting mobs anymore, and now you need to actually do some proper DPS. Hystria, which I'm going to cover right here, is a very good grind spot when you are in that intermediate AP range for warriors. Awakening Warrior does especially well there compared to our performance in other similar spots. And if you want to grind an other area than Hystria, you could just utilize the advanced combo, and the mob will probably just die before you finish off the entire combo. So that will work in those places just fine. However, Hystria is slightly different because the mobs just act differently. So first off, a big difference between Hystria and other spots is that you don't use Frenzied Strike. The reason why you don't use Frenzied Strike at Hystria is because it will actually knock back the mobs and will increase your clear time. The combo that I personally use in Hystria is very straightforward. First off, you pull the mobs. Now the mobs are relatively slow at Hystria, so while they're moving towards you, instead of using Frenzied Strike, which is my normal go-to while I'm gathering the mobs up, you can, although you don't have to, use Scars of Dusk. Now Scars of Dusk deals pretty decent damage, even though it's a main hand ability, but it also gives you a 10 DP buff. And this can be very good if you are at the lower end of your DP level for Hystria. So Scars of Dusk, optional while mobs are moving in, swap over to your Awakening, get your Q buff up, and then you're gonna do a Gravedigger into Armor Break. And what you want to do is, after your Armor Break, you actually stiffen the mobs in Hystria so you can utilize back attacks. Normally, I will dash to the side, get a spinning attack in while I do it. And from here, I just go Solar Flare into Heaven's Cleave, into Slashing the Dead, and then finish off with Reckless Bow, Angle Break, Pulverize. So it's going to look something like this. We pull the mobs. While the mobs are running, we do Scars of Dusk, swap over, Gravedigger, Armor Break, dash behind them, Solar Flare, Heaven's Cleave, Slashing, and then we can finish off with Reckless, Angle Break, Pulverize, Tempest. And if you need some more damage to finish off the mobs, we can always go back and use our Merciless, which again deals full damage, even on cooldowns, so for any finishing off, that ability will suffice. An absolute crowd favorite of Awakened Warrior is of course Star's End. For Star's End, there are two sort of combos that you really want to practice and utilize. There is the normal combo for when you're killing normal packs, and then there is the combo that you want to use when you've pulled mobs towards one of the small pillars, and you're gonna get the down attacks. When doing the pillar combo, I like to pull them in towards the pillar, start out with Armor Break, one swing of Merciless into my hotkeyed Overwhelm, and then you can Q cancel the Overwhelm into a Gravedigger. The pillar is going to be dead now, and the mobs are going to be knocked down, so you get a down attack modifier. If Reckless Blow is off cooldown, I'll use that now. If not, I'll go straight into slashing. But let's assume it's off, so we're gonna go Reckless Blow into Angle Break, and then I'll do double swing of Pulverized Tempest into slashing the dead. At this point, they should be dead. If not, you can finish off with Frenzy Strike or whatever else is available. The normal pulls that does not have a pillar at Star's End, there's a couple ways you can do it. The mobs can actually be stiffened at Star's End, so you can secure a back attack. Normally I will pull them in while the mobs are running. I'll be doing a Frenzied Strike into Gravedigger into my Armor Break, which is going to stiffen them. At this point I like to dash behind the pack and do a full charge Reckless Blow into a slashing of the dead. And if they're not dead by this, I do Solar Flare into Heaven's Cleave. And then of course you can finish off. If they're still not dead, you should probably have more AP, but then you can of course fill in with Pulverize or whatever. But this combo should kill the pack. So Frenzy Strike, Gravedigger, Armor Break, dash behind, full charge Reckless into one take of Angle Break, and then a slashing the dead. Should completely annihilate every pack. When you transition into the in-game grinding, Underwater to Crya, Orcs at Haddam, stuff like that, you're looking for something that deals a lot of DPS. Now you're probably in a position in the game where you don't necessarily finish off a pack with one or two abilities. Sometimes you even need several rotation of your combo. There is a more advanced variation of this, but I even default back to the version I'm going to show you guys today. I'll show it real quick and then I'll go over exactly what it is, but most importantly, why it is. As a lot of the other combos, I start out with getting my Frenzy Strike, my Gravedigger into Armor Break. That's gonna set me up with the skill add-ons and everything to then unload my damage. There we go. Now, if the mobs are not dead at this point, your Frenzy Strike should be back up, and you can basically just repeat the combo as you saw in the previous clip. So what I'm doing is I start out my combo with obviously pulling the mobs in, and then normally I'll go back and Q block to get my 26 AP buff from my Q block. It's a massive amount of damage increase for grinding and very, very easy to proc, so you should have this up pretty much at all times. After that, I'll do my Frenzied Strike. It deals really good damage, and I'll use this while the mobs are moving towards my position to hit them while they get in front of me, and also to give me this buff here, a 5% critical damage buff. Now, after this, I go Gravedigger into spacebar Armor Break. I do this to get my skill add-ons. I have monster AP on my Gravedigger, and then obviously the minus DP on Armor Break. On top of that, after you do Armor Break, and this is the one place in the combo where you need to have your timing on point. So I go from Armor Break straight into Solar Flare into Heaven's Cleave. And if you're a bit too slow on going Solar Flare after your Armor Break, it will skip it and just go straight into Heaven's Cleave, which is okay as well, but you're missing out on basically free damage and potential skill add-ons that you might have on your Solar Flare. So the timing of doing this is when you Armor Break, as soon as you hit, when your weapon is stretched out, you insta go into your Solar Flare right away. So it's gonna look something like this. If you're a bit too slow and you wait after you're doing your Armor Break, it will just flow into Heaven's Cleave, and you might end up doing this a lot. Even I do it from time to time. It's just about muscle memory, getting used to it, and no harm, no foul if it happens. After Heaven's Cleave, there are some different options you could do here, but I go straight from Heaven's Cleave into Slashing the Dead. And slashing on its own is amazing damage, but there is one more reason that I do this. And I'll show you guys exactly what it is. So we go Heaven's Cleave and slashing right after. And while I'm doing the animation of Heaven's Cleave, I can just queue up my slashing right away to make it flow perfectly afterwards. So I got it hotkeyed right now just to show you guys. Now, what happened? Well, I got this buff right here. 26% crit rate buff, and as a warrior, we have almost 100% crit rate on all abilities, but two very good abilities does not have it. I'm talking about Angle Break and, of course, Pulverize and Tempest. So I use this setup to get the 26% crit rate buff, and right after this, I will go into Reckless Blow with a double hit of Angle Break, and then right after that, transition into Pulverize and Tempest. After we do this, Heaven's Cleave, Slashing the Dead, I like to dash behind the mobs, do Reckless Blow, and then double rotation of my Angle Break and the Pulverize. That way, those two abilities benefit from not only my 26% crit buff, but I also have a 20% crit rate modifier on one of my previous abilities to make sure that I get 100% crit rate on my Angle Break and close to it on my Pulverize. I hope you guys found this useful, and remember, do not be afraid to try out your own stuff, get a feel for your own combos and experiment with it. This is just to get you started. From here, and a world of combos definitely opens up, but this should definitely get you covered in the beginning. And remember, if you have any questions, you can always drop a comment down below. I try to answer every single question on my videos. And of course, drop by my stream, link in the description. I stream several times a week at Twitch TV/BiceptumsPrime. I'll catch you in the next one.